to it.
Okay, my name is Pat Preston. I joined the Waves.
Wait, excuse me. You want to use the introduction?
Okay. I'm sorry. I live in the Brookwood Retirement Community at 12100 Reed Hardman Highway in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I was born on November the 4th, 1922. I joined the Waves, the U.S. Navy, and in the Women's Waves, and my service number was 7655641. My husband and I came to Indianapolis to visit my grandmother just before he was to go overseas. When he left, I went down to the recruiting station. He was a Marine pilot, and so I asked to join the Marines. However, since I was not going to officer training camp, I was going to be an enlisted person, and that was not allowed. So I asked to join the Navy. That's where Then I went to Cincinnati to be sworn in on July the 29th, 1943. My basic training was at Hunter College in the Bronx in New York. We were fitted for uniforms. We had a navy blue skirt and jacket, white shirts, short sleeve, with a navy blue tie. We had a rounded type hat with that had the top was either white or navy blue, and it just buttoned in. We also had a gray seersucker uniform. We got black shoes, but after we got our uniforms, the rest of the things we bought we had to buy ourselves. We were not issued anything more, except for a dungaree uniform or for when we went to work. While I was at Hunter College, Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt came to review the troops. We had no uniforms yet, so we were on a terrace overlooking the parade ground. I never did get to meet Mrs. Roosevelt, but and it was so hot that day. It was in August, and it was hot, and people dropped off like flies. We had schooling right there for learning about the Navy, about the Navy aircraft, about what waves could be in, what different branches they could be in. I wanted to be as close to my husband as I could possibly be, and so I wanted to go into aviation machinist mates. I took tests. I was asked if I didn't want to be a pharmacist mate since I had been in nurses training, and I said no. I was sent from there, when we graduated from basic training, I was sent to Naval Air Technical Training Center in Norman, Oklahoma. We went by train from New York to Detroit, from Detroit to St. Louis, where we got off the train and marched to a hotel for a luncheon. I don't remember how many of us there were, but it was still quite hot. And then we marched back, got on the train, and went to Oklahoma City, and got off there and were transported by what I call cattle cars. Like a bus, but it wasn't. You sat on benches on the side, and they took us to Norman, and we were marched then into the barracks there, or the wave barracks. There were 2 different barracks, 2 floors. When we got off, they got there and they let us into the barracks. All the girls that were there were laying on their bunks watching us because we were so thirsty, and we ran to the what do you call it, a water fountain. And they were all waiting for us because the water was sulfur water and it tasted terribly. And so you just spewed it out. You learned later on to swallow until you tasted the last swallow, and that was all. We were assigned bunks. There were 6 bunks in a cubicle and 6 lockers where we put our clothes. We were, some of us were assigned for KP duty in the Waves PX, or Waves mess hall. Fortunately, I wasn't one of them. But I was told to be a mustering petty officer, which involved getting the names of all the people in my unit, get them up in the morning, get them ready to go and march to mess and march to the different meetings that we had at different parts of the learning about being an aviation machinist mate. Being a mustering petty officer required me to be a drill instructor, which I had never done before. I learned very quickly that the thing that you did, you watched the group ahead of you and did what they did. You called your right right oblique, left oblique, right. turn left, right turn, left turn, halt. While I was doing mustering, where I was doing drill instructor, I got laryngitis, and because I didn't want to give up the drilling, I ruined my voice because it hurt the vocal cords. We learned about planes. We learned about the propellers. We learned about the engines. We learned how to start an engine, an airplane. And with that, you used a bungee cord. A bungee cord that was about 1.5 inches thick. And it hooked on to the top of one of the props, and you pulled it. When you pulled it, you had to get out of the way in a big hurry because that end came up. One of the girls did not, and she was very badly bruised in the legs. We had classes from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. Then we were free for dinner and for you could go to the PX, and because there were a lot of sailors, a lot of Marines, there were several PXs. And also, we had entertainment. The entertainment was with Tex Beneke, who was in the service.
Excuse me.
Okay. When we had our parades once a week in front of the captain, it didn't make any difference what the weather was. We had a parade. Norman, Oklahoma is the only place that I know of where you can stand knee-deep in mud and still have sand blowing in your face. If you lost your shoe, you kept on walking. You did not stop for anything. And but it was good. I enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot. Then we were allowed to pick 3 places. There were 3 places that we could pick to go to finish our time up. One of them was in San Pedro, California. And that is the one that I picked because it would be the closest to my husband, who was in the South Pacific. We left Norman by train. I had leave first, and then went to, I went back to New York to my parents, and then went from New York to California, to San Pedro, California, which is the Naval Air Station. There was also a naval operating base. There was also a naval receiving station, all on this terminal island. We worked, we had barracks, wave barracks, I am not sure how many people were there. I would say probably 100 or more waves on the station. There was we went and we worked on the airplanes for overseas shipment. What we did was we taped all moving parts with a very wide tape and then sprayed it with a brown substance called peralketone. That kept the salt air from rusting the parts. We also put dummy plugs in the engine. I worked on F4Fs and F4Us. We worked from 7 in the morning. We went to work and we did not march anywhere there because there were different places that we could go. I mean, there was you went to mess hall. There was a wave PX. There was also parachute riggers loft, and then there was our unit that went down to and did the airplanes themselves. We were allowed to be off base 3 nights out of 4 from from 7 in the morning, from 5 in the afternoon till 7 in the morning. So while I was able to do that, I rented a little 1-room apartment that had a pull-down bed, had a little kitchenette, and a bath, so that I could stay overnight. We also had our day on that was on the base, the night that we were on the base. Sometimes we were assigned to the office. When we were assigned the office, we were there from 5 in the afternoon until 6 or 7 the next morning. And we ran errands. We put the flag up. We took the flag down. We did whatever was necessary for that particular night. We had 1 week every 6 weeks where we were assigned the barracks, and we had to clean the barracks and wait for an inspection on Friday. And that was a white glove inspection. We had a large multi-purpose room, and it was very comfortable. It had tables and chairs. We could play bridge. You could play games. You could read. We had to clean the bathrooms and the laundry rooms and make sure that all the bunks were correctly made and that everything was clean. The Navy was a great one for wanting everything clean. while I was in the there, I had an opportunity. I went home on leave, and my mother showed me a thing that came from the government about my father's life insurance policy. I hadn't seen my father since I was 9 years old, and I really wanted to make connection. So I wrote the Adjutant General and gave my father's name and his rank and his number, and asked them if they could get me in touch with him. Several weeks later, I got a letter with my father's APO address. And of course, I wrote him. And then from then on, and he wrote me back, and so we continued to write. He was also over in the South Pacific. When he returned home, we had a great meeting. It was wonderful. He was a major, I think, at that time. Major or lieutenant colonel, I think. I think he was a lieutenant colonel, and then when he got out of the service, he was a major. My time in the service was very enlightening. I met some very nice people. However, through the years, we've lost touch. But then I could get out. My husband came back from overseas, and he had been in Guam. And so we got leave, a 30-day leave. And while we're on the train coming from California to New York, we played bridge all day, all night. We're standing in line. You got 2 meals, breakfast and dinner, and you're standing in line to go to dinner, and I passed out. Unfortunately, we were only 3 from the beginning of the line, and my husband said, "Why didn't you do that when we were at the end of the line?" Because they got me a seat. He went on to Jacksonville, Florida, and I remained in San Pedro until I had enough points to get out. And then I went from San Pedro to New York and was discharged on September the 1st, 1945.